community is built on three types of capital: ecological, social, and economic. Ecological capital and social capital and economic capital are material, but they're also spiritual. The spirit, not religious, spiritual. The spirituality is how we practice conscious relationship with what we do. It is the trusteeship part of the relationship, that which we pass forward. All types of capital depend on investment and reinvestment in order to exist. One of the challenges we face is we only think about economic capital. And reinvestment there is after the fact. You make the money first, and then you put some money back into the infrastructure to maintain it. Well, with a living system, you can't do that because it doesn't run on money. It runs on biological capital. Every system dies in part to itself, and the dying part nourishes the system. Our bodies, for example, reproduce your muscle. Every 7 years, you have a new set of muscle tissue. But the part that is dying is also used to nourishing. That's what composting is. We have our own inner compost. We have a little universe living in us of microbes that feed off of us, but also nourish us and keep us going. So does a forest. A fallen tree that decomposes in the forest reinvests biologically the nutrients it had. But the tree itself is investing while it's living because it's capturing sunlight through photosynthesis, creates biomass, which then deteriorates, so it both invests and reinvests in the forest when it's allowed to lie out there and rot. So, in natural systems, we have to reinvest before the fact by asking ourselves, how much of the system do we have to leave intact to function sustainably over time to produce the goods and services that we require as a society in order to have a quality life. So we reinvest before the fact on the one hand and after the fact on the other, and we confuse the two. We have to look at biological capital as well as economic capital. And then we have to understand that all systems are dissipative structures. They balance the energy intake with the energy output. Have any of you ever had so much energy you just felt you had to run around the block or you bust? You have to dissipate some of that energy or you feel unbalanced. We all do that. All we are, like the rest of living systems, are conduits of energy. And that's a very important concept because that is how systems function. And we have to learn to define systems not by their parts, but by the function of the parts and the health of that function. Ultimately, the healthy functioning of a system is the best measure of a healthy economic system. Because economic wealth is all based on natural wealth. And natural wealth is the living earth. Then there are feedback loops. Where are they taking us today? Are they positive or negative? We don't destroy ecosystems. They're not that powerful. We change them. But they're changing all the time. What we're destroying are the values that we saw in the system. If you clear-cut a forest, that land can still grow trees. Given time, it might take 1,000 years. But Mother Nature is a lot rougher on herself than we have been. The difference is Mother Nature has novelty, uncertainty, and does not do things in a systematic manner. I was called by the Canadian government to testify before an administrative tribunal in Ontario, in Toronto, a few years ago. Actually, it was in the 90s, early 90s, because they had found on satellite images huge 1,000-kilometer clear cuts in northern Ontario. It had been done very quietly by industry. They gave me 2 days to provide a view of how systems function. Now, those forests have the ability to grow back, but what if it takes 1,000 years? You see, Mother Nature has no timetable. We do. That's the issue. We become impatient. We want it now. When I worked with the Shinto priests on some of their forestry issues in Japan, I listened to them argue all day, sometimes 2 days, 3 days. At the end of the day, I couldn't see them for all the smoke in the room. But when they came to consensus, they did it right the first time. We don't have the patience in the industrialized West to take the time to look at the foundation of what we do. We need to act. We want to act now. And action without reflection is seldom wise. That's what monitoring is, which we'll talk about tomorrow. When you do something, you have to monitor the effect to find out if it was wise or not, and if not, how do you change?